Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our February ASP webinar. And I'm absolutely delighted today to welcome MPG and Helen and Dom, who are going to be joining me today to discuss PPC and paid media and why they are strategic necessity. And there are so many alliances between this and the website, and we're going to be chatting through all of this today. But really looking forward to chatting this through with Helen and Dom. Hopefully, it's going to be a really useful session for everyone. Just to note that it is being recorded. There will be copies of it's not an extensive presentation today. It's very much going to be kind of a natural conversational session today. But there are some slides, so they will be made available afterwards. And also there are some special offers afterwards, which I think are being shared around, so they'll be made available as well. Oops. First technical issue. So today we are much of it's going to be around the PPC topic, and I'll certainly be jumping in with questions and hopefully questions from hopefully a sort of a semi-organizer's point of view in relation to PPC and how it can really sing and really work amazingly well. I'll obviously also add in stuff around the website, SEO and related topics over that. But here are some of the basics in which we'll be going through today, and I believe Helen will be starting off, and then Dom will be going into much of the meat of the presentation and sort of chats as we're going through this. So just a quick intro, just in case you're not aware of who ASP are or where I am. So my name's John Monk. I'm head of performance here at ASP. ASP provides event websites, and we have been doing so since 1997. So we only do websites, and we only do websites for events. So we know this space pretty well. I've been doing SEO since 2014. In that time, have worked across a real wide range of industries and business types. Specialised in events about four and a half years ago. So therefore bring to the industry quite a bit of kind of external knowledge, but now purely specialised in events and all of the technicalities and the way in which events work. So that's me. If I'd like to give Helen and Dom opportunity to introduce themselves and MPG.
Thank you very much, John, and the team at ASP for inviting us to be on your webinar. We're great fans of the ASP platform and your product. Our team loves using ASP for all sorts of good reasons. So we're delighted to be partnering with you on this particular webinar today. So those of you who don't know who MPG is, we've been around for 12 years and been doing pretty much the same thing for those 12 years. So we've been all of that time specializing in event marketing for conferences, trade shows, B2B events, essentially. And we're very much about data-driven marketing and digitally enabled marketing. And obviously our world is now very much about AI as well. It's been an exciting time, learning a lot and getting to grips with it and getting some good results from AI deployment. So, and that's all part of being data-driven marketers. And we would love to we prepared today to share with you some of the things we've learned about PPC and paid media when we've worked with founders, business leaders, and marketers on how to grow their events. I'm joined today by Dom, who's our senior technical specialist on PPC and paid media. So I'll let Dom do most of the talking today. But I think, John, you wanted to start with the biggest question of all, I guess, is the why. Why are we talking about this today?
Yeah, I mean, the title was kind of the strategic importance of PPC, especially when it comes to events and events marketing. Why is it strategically? It's a very basic question. Why is it strategically important?
So there's four reasons really, and I'll go through them as quickly as I possibly can, all very important reasons. So the first one is email can no longer be relied on as pretty much the main and only channel for event marketers. It's not scalable. It's certainly not getting the engagement and web traffic it used to. So we know that PPC and paid media is now as a channel across all the different platforms is driving a lot more traffic than it used to, and actually driving quite a lot more traffic than email now
Interesting.
for some events, and
Mm.
also driving higher quality traffic
Right.
and more
Yeah.
conversions, just a higher conversion rate. So obviously, you're kind of very manageable and plannable and measurable inbound channel,
Yeah.
essentially. The other reason is that SEO is not working quite as well as it used to, and AI discovery hasn't quite caught up yet. So there's kind of a little gap for PPC and paid media at the moment. And what's making that particularly successful also for these platforms is that there's some clever AI stuff in the platforms now that's very, very good at targeting and driving the very, very high quality traffic to the websites. And the final reason is it's very predictable, it's very manageable, it's very measurable. And quite honestly, as long as you measure it well, it is predictable and manageable. So it's something you can dial up and down. You have a lot of control over, and it really improves the performance of all your other channels if it's used in the right way as well.
Fantastic. Have you been given any insights as to why email is not quite as effective as it used to be?
I think it's a combination of things. So consumer behavior is changing. Everyone's just getting far too many emails. A lot of email content and emails themselves are being now produced and sent out by bots. So everyone's just even more inundated, and a lot of the quality of the emails is, in many cases, is quite poor. So there's a great deal of kind of disengagement from those emails, and then also two more things, they just getting shoved into junk, probably because the quality's low and there are
Yeah,
too many of them, and just caught in spam traps before they even hit the junk folders.
absolutely.
And a lot of the time, it's the AI algorithms that sit across the whole digital uh, ecosystem
Yeah,
now that are basically catching the email out before it can
yeah.
reach a recipient. It's not to say it's not important. Email's still very important. It's a very important informational tool, customer services tool, needs to be more targeted and high quality than ever, needs to complement PPC. So we
Yeah.
don't say don't do email, keep doing it, do high quality, do targeted, but then PPC is a really essential channel alongside that now.
I mean, on the SEO side, I don't disagree that on the bigger picture, there are some challenges around SEO and especially in kind of really competitive niches. Certainly, what I find with many of our clients is that many of them just don't do it at all. So as a result, for any clients who are thinking, oh, well, that means forget about SEO, let's do PPC. Well, in actual fact, it doesn't take that much, to be perfectly honest, for an event website to actually just do some basics and improve SEO. And certainly all the conversations I've had, if you have a website which is well SEO'd, it can certainly help the PPC. So
Yeah.
and also a lot of events organisers, what they don't realise is that their event website actually is perfectly suited for SEO, and one of the main reasons is because it has amazing speakers who bring with it loads of authority. So if you're a
Mm.
normal business, like I used to deal with before, which was really difficult to get kind of authoritative people associated with the business and the website, SEO was a real uphill challenge. Whereas with an event website, we certainly find that results can be sometimes quite quick because especially when you have some really amazing people and speakers. But I digress. Shall we let's get
No,
back
no. Well,
to
let's just. I think that SEO is a really important point, actually, and I completely agree. It's incredibly important. I'm not saying because PPCs become more important, SEO is less. I think it's probably even more important than it used to be, and everything that you do for SEO also helps with AI discovery.
yeah,
So, and actually, how much attention a marketer, an event marketer, pays to their event website, and optimizing it and getting all the right, um, technical setup and content and high quality, highly relevant content into the website and updating that regularly is incredibly important. So it's not to diminish that, and it'll just be a matter of time before the search engines and AI discovery kind of kick in a way that actually fully complement PPC and pay media. It's kind of the other side of the coin, really. It's the organic inbound, and that is incredibly important, and it's an ongoing process,
Absolutely.
really.
I'm guessing though the what you're saying about email though, I mean that's would you say that's the kind of the big shift and currently in the why strategically PPC because there's no doubt events marketers have relied upon email quite a bit, haven't they?
Yeah. Far too much still, actually. When we contacted by event organisers who are struggling to grow their events, it's usually one of the first things they say is we rely far too much on email and we're not sure how to get all the other channels working for us in the best way. Absolutely. It's interesting because I think it's one of the most easy channels to understand, and it's the most easy
Yeah.
channels to measure. So because all the other channels are much more complicated, they feel like the dark arts compared to email. There's a real fear around them, and there's a worry that any time and money spent, on them won't produce a return. When actually, if you think about how much time event marketers spend on email and how little return that's producing at the moment, there really is no choice but to transform and completely change how the marketers are approaching their marketing.
We had I was speaking with a client probably about 6 months ago now, and they were taking over the marketing campaign for quite a big event. Obviously, I'm not going to say who it was, but the email list had gone missing, and so therefore they were needed to start afresh with regard to their event marketing. And the primary thought was let's just buy a new email list compared with doing some PPC, and that's what they did. And I think the results were okay, but they bought a new email list. So certainly PPC seems that it can be a great plug for when there may be gaps in the email list.
Yeah, there's a few points I think Dom will make shortly about on that particular topic.
Yeah, well,
Fantastic.
we encountered something similar, really, where not in the sense someone had lost an email list, but an event that basically they had a group of key target companies that they wanted to reach, and for years they struggled to reach them, and they brought in PPC via us, MPG. Within just a few weeks and less than 10% of the spend, we'd already got contacts from these companies that before via email, via social, whatever, they've been trying it, it just wasn't working. So it can be a sort of a really powerful way to get into these companies and just put a different message, a different format of messaging in front of them.
Was this targeting exhibitors?
This was exhibitors, yeah. And it was these really key companies that they wanted for a long time. So when they saw them popping up in their CRM, they got very, very excited and are now big advocates of PPC as a result.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean that's one thing which often is missed, isn't it? That real targeting and at such a granular level, and I think raising that I mean from a strategic level that raises such an important reason to really focus in and see what PPC can do, because I think what you raised there, some people probably wouldn't even think that's possible.
Exactly, yeah. You can have some very, I mean, like Helen said, it's extremely measurable. So you can track pretty much every click from start through to the lead come into the CRM. So you can gain a really deep understanding of what it is that actually works for your event. So it's just really good for if you're investing money, if you want to be confident that that's getting the result, you've got that transparency just immediately coming back from every pound that you spend.
Fantastic.
I'd say also that it's not only the lead coming to the CRM where we're generating leads for sales people to follow up with. It's a high value delegate tickets, an expensive delegate ticket that is getting some telesales treatment or some kind of group bookings that are worth going after with delegate sales, or it's some exhibitor sales or sponsorship sales. one of the things that we would always advocate to make sure PPC has the best return is to make sure that the quality of those leads is carefully monitored. So it's,
Yeah.
you know, what Dom was mentioning, it was exactly the companies they were looking for. The sales team got very excited when they saw the CRM suddenly, you know, these suddenly popping up in their leads list, and they knew they'd come from PPC. But more important was how they'd followed through to actually close them into sales and see what the revenue was that came from those.
Yeah.
So that full closed loop reporting, which we actually pay quite a lot of attention to in helping our clients get that in place. So so we would recommend that anyone who's doing PPC, whether it's through an agency or in-house or whatever the method is, pay a lot of attention to the processes, the integrations, the workflows that give you the visibility of how those leads are also converting, so that you know what your actual ROI is. You know, 10 leads is not an ROI. 10 leads of which 2 convert that deliver 40k revenue, that's an ROI. So you need to kind of follow right through to the full sales cycle, the full sales process, and know exactly what you're actually achieving from the leads generated.
I mean, I guess this leads quite nicely into the tracking line in the slide here, but certainly one thing that, because we've been more regularly with clients providing Google Analytics and Google Search Console dashboards, they're only quite simple. I know they're a lot more simple than the dashboards and the reporting that you provide clients, but on one of the key metrics which I certainly recommend with people is that, you know, where you're talking about their conversions, and then we talk about conversion rates, so you can look at one channel versus another. So in terms of conversions, what are some of the key things that you're measuring? I presume it's actual purchase, when it's online, so I presume it's that. And also, if it's offline, do you have measures in place, for example, with sales teams to try and feedback and in terms of what actually turns into a conversion?
Yeah, so you're right that conversions is really the first thing, or the most important thing that you should look at. We really strongly recommend to our clients that they don't start any activity until they have conversion tracking in place, because it is just so important now, especially when we've got all of this AI that's coming into PPC. Feeding the right data to those AI algorithms is so important for getting the best results, and conversions are just the best data that you can give to them. And the end result of that is that you get more people coming to your website who are the right people who are going to convert. And the way that we define conversions is anyone who fills in any sort of form on the website. So they're becoming a lead, you've got their data, you can use that, or a registrant, someone purchasing a ticket, signing up, whatever it is, some sort of action that you can then follow up on. So it is just so important to have that in place, really, before you do any activity.
Is it possible, because and I know this actually slightly relates back to targeting with PPC, and I know I was involved with a PPC campaign where it was really drummed into me the importance of getting these conversions nailed, in that, like you were saying before, that AI systems now work within the PPC environment, and behind the conversion is kind of the audience that then created that conversion. And then by the systems understanding who the audience is to create that conversion, they'll go after more of that audience. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, Google built a whole new campaign type around that idea, really, which is called Google Performance Max, which is effectively you're giving Google a bit more freedom to use that conversion data to find your audience. So PPC used to be very manual. It was very much put the keyword in. It only targets people who search for that. You put the exact ad in front of them, and it's moved very much more towards giving Google the agency to use its machine learning, which is incredibly effective, to reach people and put the right message in front of them through AI. We always caution that it needs careful human guidance as sort of a first step. Unfortunately, we're not at the stage yet where you can just throw a whole load of money in, put your website in, and Google will do the rest. If you try and do that, it's going to go down the wrong track, because B2B events are really niche from Google's perspective. It struggles to understand them, so you really need some expertise to set that up in the right way. And I just remembered on your previous point, you mentioned offline conversions. That is definitely something that is worth implementing as well. And really the logic there is that you're feeding as much data back to the platforms as you can. So if someone has been influenced to become a lead or has been generated from PPC and they are closed later via whatever, whether it's sales, however else it is, getting that data back into the ad platforms, again, really, really powerful signal for telling it, okay, these are the kind of people that we want to get more of. So prioritize targeting these with ads.
Stupid question, but how would that data get back? If you're a salesperson, you've just rung up, you've got your list of leads of people to call. How would that information kind of get back into the system?
It really depends on the specific systems that you're using, both on the ad platform side and the CRM that you're using. I mean, hooking up the ad platform to the CRM and then managing it between those two platforms is the simplest way of doing it. So you really have to research the specifics of the CRM that you've got. The mainstream ones, they tend to have a sort of preset way to integrate with ad platforms that's nice and simple.
Sure. Okay, amazing. How important is this? So, there's many organizers I speak to, and I see the Google Analytics accounts of many organizers, and this conversion tracking, or going into key events, or certainly into Google Analytics. I'm not sure exactly how it happens into the ad accounts, but anecdotally, I certainly speak to a lot of organizers in which this tracking is this conversion tracking is not set up. How damaging could that be to their? It sounds like it could be quite a negative impact if it isn't set up.
So I'll dive in there. So we refuse pretty much to run PPC campaigns until it is set up, because it is that bad. And sometimes we end up actually turning clients away for that reason. The good news, I guess, is it is possible to set it up in the right way, and we do that. So it's so important. I mean, that just illustrates how important it is. It's so important that whenever we start working on a new web entity, a new property, the very first thing we do is do an audit and make sure it's all in place properly. That's just part of the process. And if it's not in place properly, it's really important that it is in place. So our kind of first steps when we start a PPC project is look at doing an audit, what's in place, what isn't in place, what needs to be done, laying out what needs to be done to fix it, improve it, get it ready. Then either the event organizers themselves would fix that with their own analysts or their marketers, or we would do it, or some other analyst they have maybe external that they use. So the point is, it doesn't matter who does it, it needs to be done. Sometimes it's quite difficult actually, because systems don't talk to each other very well. So often an answer we'll get is, we tried to do it and it can't be done because the systems require cross-domain tracking or whatever it is. You can always find a workaround. In our experience, it's always possible to either set it up in the right way or find a workaround. In terms of why it's so important, John, is without that data, so without the data feeding back into the algorithms don't know how to find the right people. So there's a lot of buzzwords we hear about AI, and one of them, I guess, is I hear a lot of talk about structured data, how AI needs structured data to work. This is structured data. This is a very good example of structured data, and the good news is the systems do it for you as long as you set them up correctly. And this structured data, both from the actual analytics and the way Dom described in terms of the offline conversions, as long as it's fed back into the AI algorithms in the right way, which is perfectly possible with the right approach, then this structured data trains the AI algorithms along with people who need to keep training them as well. We believe in you need the data to train and then the people to train as well, and then you get the amplified effect. The structured data is what's needed. So without that data, AI feeds off data, AI relies on data, and the AI in the platforms is now what's actually driving that strong performance of PPC and paid media. It's not new, it's not emerging, it's not kind of coming, it's there. It's been there for a long time, at least 6 months. And we're seeing the performance therefore has improved significantly for that reason, but only if the AI is set up for success, essentially.
It's funny, isn't it? Because when everyone's thinking about AI, it's always, typing stuff into ChatGPT or getting someone to write an article in, 30 seconds compared with, how it used to before. But in actual fact, this AI of finding the right audience based on who's actually bought something is in many ways the most powerful, isn't it?
Exactly. Completely. Yeah.
Sorry, Tom, were you going to say something there?
And yeah, the change in how people are searching on Google is also kind of leads into this in a way, because Google basically did that annual report and they released sort of the way that people were searching on Google, and is changing. So people are going from putting in simple keywords to actually putting in full questions, because they're getting used to talking to the LLMs like ChatGPT, like Gemini. So if you want to benefit from that, you're going to have to leverage this AI that's in Google Ads, because it's going to have to be able to match up what these quite complex queries that people are searching to what it is that you're offering. And just to put some numbers on the sort of conversion tracking benefits, not unusual for me to see a campaign that will start with a cost per conversion that's above £100. So you have to pay £100 or more to get a conversion.
Yep.
And then through the course of the campaign, that very quickly comes down. And by the end, you've got an average of £10, £15. So imagine if you didn't have that conversion tracking and you didn't have those signals going to Google, it's just not going to be able to learn who the right people are to target and what the end goal that you actually want is. So that's kind of the size of the prize there, is it really, really improves your cost efficiency.
By 90%.
Yeah,
Wow.
definitely seen that. I think we've seen more extreme ones as well. But yeah, it's honestly, it's so important for getting the right audience. It's by far the most important signal that you can give.
I mean, we won't have time to go into the weeds in terms of registration forms, etc. But I certainly have seen how, not that third-party registration forms are a problem, it takes a bit longer to set up the tracking depending on the tech stack and everything else like that. So would you say that in terms of some best practice for the client that and for the organizer, just allow yourself plenty of time and a little bit of budget just to make sure that the tracking is set up on these third-party reg forms?
Absolutely, and it's definitely worth the investment. So I wouldn't hold back on spending the money you need to spend to get it right, wherever whatever's required, the time and the money. And bearing in mind, this is not about only tracking PPC and paid media. It's also about all your other channels, because if you've got the conversion tracking set up for PPC and paid media, suddenly you can measure all of your channels, including how SEO is performing, AI, discovery, and a lot of those channels are also feeding signals, especially SEO and AI discovery. When SEO and AI discovery is processed, the traffic from those sources is processed through the conversion tracking. The conversion tracking is also sending signals back into those channels, and then they work better. So it's not just a matter of we need this in so PPC can work as well as possible. We can measure the ROI. We can get those campaigns working. It's about all of your channels, and it's really important to have a multi-channel approach. And suddenly, marketers have all the visibility they need of how all their channels are performing, sources of direct traffic, referrals, everything just becomes visible when you solve that problem. So it goes well beyond PPC and paid media.
100%. And one of the things I chat about relating to that is how with cookie consents, etc., last year, a lot of the data signals that were going back to the systems are now being reduced, and therefore we need to kind of top them up with other means. Obviously, on PPC now starting to feedback conversions can certainly help with that, and 100% on the SEO side, if we're able to firstly just write more on the website, so therefore the machines and people can see more about what the business is about. to give more context to the machines, but also, like you say, if we have the conversion tracking set up, then they can see also the content which is driving actual conversions as well, and will send more people. So it's a very similar story actually across the different marketing channels, isn't it? And the key point here is getting your tracking set up and your conversion set up, isn't it?
The most important point after making sure the website they land on is in the good state to convert them, obviously.
We mentioned here about targeting, and it seems like the machines in many ways can do a lot of targeting. What kind of approaches do you take to make sure, first step, that organizers are targeting, like say, whether it's the right people, the right areas, the right demographics, etc.? What sort of approaches do you take on that?
I think it's about getting the right people involved. So you need someone who has a good understanding of the event itself, and you need someone who has a good understanding of PPC and how it works, because there are so many different options for not just the channels, but within them, the campaign types that you can use. And then even within that, there's different approaches that you can take to the targeting. So you need someone who has a good understanding of basically what's possible, but that needs to be supplemented by an understanding of the event and the event audience. So we do have some sort of default approaches that we take. For example, we find that Google search pretty much across the board is a really safe channel and a really effective channel to use for B2B events. And just in general with the targeting, the most important thing really for us is to make sure we've got good tracking, good reporting, and good levels of optimizations and reviews in place, basically to make sure that things are behaving how they should. Because I've been working in B2B events PPC for almost 10 years now, and it's still the case that things don't work exactly how I expect them to. You do have to go back and adjust your approach a little bit, tweaking how you're targeting keywords, tweaking the audiences that you're targeting. Maybe something works even better than you expected, so you prioritize that in terms of your budgeting. So it's about having a good foundation, but then you've got to make sure that you are recording it, reviewing it, adjusting it as you go. And that's how you make sure that you get the best end result that you can.
Yeah,
Fantastic.
and I'd say, sorry, the starting point, and this isn't something, we should overlook by any means, is knowing, obviously know who you want to target, know who your audience is, and doing the groundwork up front of what are the audience groups that you're going after for this event, regardless of PPC paid media. Who are these personas essentially? What are these? How do you group them? What are their geos, their company types, their job titles, the company sizes? Is there a list of, someone I think popped a question in the chat about ABM. You might have a list of, say, 300 companies that are your targets for specific account-based marketing type of thing. So know exactly who you're targeting upfront, and then you'll know with the right type of understanding of how the channels and campaign types work, you'll know how to target them, and understanding what kinds of search terms they'll use when looking for events like yours or solutions associated with your event. Don't hold back on getting that groundwork done before you even start, and often that's not quite in place as it should be before campaigns are turned on.
I'm guessing that's such a key area in which where you guys add value, in terms that if someone knows who they're targeting, you can then steer in terms of which platforms do we therefore use. Because I guess when people talk about PPC, we kind of talk about this now in many ways. We, I guess, could have talked about it at the beginning, but there's that tendency to always just, I suppose, think about Google. But obviously, there's lots of different platforms we can use, and by knowing who and it's obviously going to be a huge difference between a niche consumer show and all of the different B2B shows and all of the different industries. Different platforms are going to have different depending on the market, it's going to depend on which platforms you use, isn't it?
And there's a bit of a balance to be found in terms of the audience targeting that you do, because obviously you want to make sure you're putting relevant messaging in front of audience segments based on maybe like their professional criteria, so the job function that they have. and maybe even in combination with where they are in the funnel.
Yeah.
The challenge, the balance is making sure you aren't making your audiences too small,
Yeah.
because that's when you run into the problems of the algorithms just not really being able to fire up, because you just don't have enough people, you don't have enough volume to get the result that you need. So it's about going as sort of specific and relevant as you can, without sacrificing that algorithm driven performance that you get from having a bit of volume. So it's a bit of a balancing act to find that perfectly.
Do you have any top tips for organizers in terms of finding out who their actual audience is versus who they think their audience might be?
I mean, you can kind of glean that from the running of the activity itself. So as you go when you're reviewing things, because you do get quite a lot of data back on engagement. So if you're doing, for example, on LinkedIn, you can get engagement based on company types, on job functions, all of that sort of good stuff. So if you have a theory about the particular company types or job titles that are going to be engaging with you, you can kind of test that and validate that.
Yeah.
And maybe that'll be a bit different. You can also get information from Google on what people are actually searching for. So it might be that there's a topic in your community that you didn't realize was something that was so sort of interesting to people at the moment. So it can be really good for gleaning insights from that you can then use if it's maybe putting it into the ads themselves, maybe creating emails on it, maybe creating content on it. So just really from running the activity, you can get some good insight on your audience.
Do existing email databases, do they help at all?
They definitely can, because you can directly leverage that data on PPC. Obviously, GDPR data requirements all met, but you can basically target that data, and that is quite an effective tactic that we found. A trend to look out for in PPC, which is kind of quite early on, but I think is going to keep going, is this idea of giving platforms signals rather than exact targeting. So I mentioned before how it used to be that we put keywords in and it was basically you were targeting that keyword, just that keyword.
Yeah.
It's much more now you're almost teaching the platform who your audience is, and data like email databases, past attendees, website visitors, search intent, all of these things, you can combine them and you can really help the platform get a good understanding of who your audience is. So that was sort of spearheaded by Google, but I think that's going to become more and more common, and it's kind of going to become the default way that we do PPC. It's a bit more indirect, but from what we've seen, gets better results as well.
So one of the things, because we'll sort of come around to the website in a second, but one of the things on which we help clients with is being a SEO guy, trying to get people to the website and give them great quality content's been the thing for quite a long time, really. And one of the ways in which I try and persuade organizers is a great and very cost-effective thing to do is, for example, transcribe their conference sessions, get those down on paper, get those published as blog posts, and they're kind of top of funnel sort of types of content and which can bring people to the website all year round. Is that type of activity one way of teaching the platforms who your audience is?
Absolutely, yeah, because that is a big component of the targeting, especially on Google Ads. It takes a lot of information from your website, and it uses that for the targeting, so to make sure that you're reaching relevant people. And more, it also uses it now for the ad content as well.
Yeah.
So we advise caution on this because this sort of generative AI stuff it's not perfect yet, especially for B2B events. But it's something to keep an eye on, because if you've got this content, and what you said is a great example, if you've got it on your website, then the ad platform can leverage it. And when people are searching for things that are related to that, it can basically join the dots and connect them to that content. So the more content you've got like that on your website, the better. And obviously, like I said, that feeds into SEO as well. These AI overviews that seek to answer questions, all of that information is really good for getting in that as well. So it benefits you in many ways. And I guess from a user perspective, it's just nice to have that, right? So you can go and see like past events, what happened, what sort of insights were gleaned.
fully take on board your comments about the quality, and always a big caution in terms of AI generated quality. Certainly when we do stuff for clients, quality is paramount and there's always a human eye that looks over it. So yeah, 100% fully agree on the quality. And if you're not careful also, just on the SEO side, that Google does have AI filters. So therefore, if your website has a lot of purely AI generated content, which is relatively low quality, it's possible that your website will actually get banned from Google. You have to This is from pretty poor prompts, to be honest, and a lot of AI generated content. So we won't delve into the topic of AI generated content because it's a whole webinar series on its own. But so long as the content is well written, it's written, it's a great representation of the talk. It reads well for humans, completely unique. You generally have some good quality content there, especially if it's optimized for certain keywords. But always be cautious of short prompts and just letting AI run its course, because it certainly can actually cause some issues. So in terms of the website, so in the past we've seen it where you have organizers will have they'll have their web agency, they'll have their PPC agency, and no one ever talks to each other, and each does its own thing. And I've certainly seen examples where PPC is just going to random places on the website, often just the homepage. I also saw an example where PPC was running an ad for a £3,000 conference ticket, and which was just going straight to the kind of buy now page where you just then check out. And strangely enough, didn't work very well because no one had actually been told about what's the £3,000 they were buying. It was just straight to the checkout page. How important is the website when it comes to an effective PPC campaign?
I'm glad I'm not the only one who experiences that. I do quite often have to guide clients to, maybe if this is the first time we're pushing people to the website, they're not going to immediately drop several thousand on a ticket. So yeah, I definitely relate to that challenge. It is just so important, your website. I mean, it always has been, but I think really relating to everything we've already talked about, it's even more important now. I think in particular, people's expectations for websites are changing, and that's really being driven by AI. So the way that people interact with information now is they expect quick, specific answers, and I think your website needs to deliver that. And I mean that in both ways, in that it should feed that information to these AI tools that sort of summarize that information. But also when people go to your website, it shouldn't be difficult for them to find exactly what they're looking for in terms of why should I care about this event? Why is it useful to me in particular? Like, why do I need to care about this? And because a lot of traffic that comes from PPC is the first time they're seeing your event, first time seeing your brand, it's so important to make a good first impression and quickly get them engaged with your content. So I always say, if you can get your website working well for PPC, all your other marketing activity is going to be lifted up as well, because your website is just going to be so much better at just capturing people and convincing them that this is something that they should pay attention to.
One of the things I try and educate organisers on is the concept of event topics. Obviously, there'll be the main brands in which we certainly see that organisers will do fairly well on organic search. The primary topic, sometimes well, sometimes not so much. And then there could be subtopics. So for example, if you have a event about AI, maybe there are kind of subtopics about machine learning or robotics, or 101 other things which are specifics under there. And therefore we'll try and educate clients in that you actually need to now start breaking the events down into the key areas in which it covers, not just for machines, but for people as well. As a person going to an AI event, I might want to know about only interested in machine learning and not anything else. Does that help with PPC at all?
Absolutely. We saw this quite a few years ago, where an event we were working on, it used to be quite a sort of big, bulky conference that covered a lot of topics. And what they did was they split it into, I think it was like 7 different forums. and each of the forums had a specific focus for what it was going to address within this sort of broader topic. And for each of those, they created a sort of separate website within the main conference website. And that meant that on the PPC, we could segment our ads and our campaigns in the same way. So we were serving forum-specific messaging to the correct audience group. And the performance was, it just blew up. It was so much better than when we had the sort of big sort of conference that just had this website that tried to fit everything on one page and tried to be everything for everyone all at once. So the word here is really relevance, and I think that's always been the case with PPC in particular, is just how relevant can you make it to the person who's coming through to your website.
I'm guessing also because we spoke before about targeting and audiences, and maybe just using this fictional AI event, maybe the audience for robotics is completely different than it could be for machine learning. They could be a completely different set of companies, couldn't they? So suddenly, by breaking it down, you can now start to actually see who the machines can now start to see who those audiences are a little bit better.
Yeah, I saw someone popped up with a question about primary and secondary goals, which it has a lot of relevance here. So obviously you want to track everything on your website, but when you're thinking about those different audiences, it might be that different conversion goals are more relevant to others. So an obvious example is if you've got a brochure for your sponsors, you obviously want to push that to prospective sponsors, and you don't want it pushed so much to the delegate side of things. So simply the act of marking that as a primary conversion for your sponsor campaigns, and then marking your delegate conversions as primary. It's such a simple thing, but it really helps direct Google and the other platforms to what the goal of that campaign in particular is.
Fantastic. Just to reassure people, we've had a few questions in. We will allow a few minutes at the end for all of the questions, so please bear with us. Hopefully we answer them along the way, but there are some questions and we will cover them at the end. In terms of the website also, I mean, the raised the point of topics, but in the past people also used to use the word landing pages. Where do landing pages kind of sit today? Is there such a thing as a landing page? What is it? What makes a good one?
It's definitely a thing. Again, I think it's something that is becoming even more powerful and relevant as people expect more tailored experiences. So to be clear, when we say landing pages, we're kind of talking about these almost sort of self-contained mini versions of your website that are tailored in some way. So you could tailor it to the audience in terms of like what do they work in, what's their job function, what are the problems that they want solved by your event. But you can also tailor it based on where they are in the funnel. I think in particular it's quite powerful in that sort of middle phase when there's a risk that people that might fall out, like they're sort of aware of your event, maybe they visited your website once or twice, but they're not sure yet. So putting in front of them a really concise and compelling landing page that's like, here's why this event benefits you in your role, and here is something, brochure, register your interest, maybe even sign up. Here is the action you should take to make sure that you don't miss out on this event. So it's just a case of putting it in front of them in a really clear way. We've done plenty of testing on landing pages directly from PPC campaigns. And I think the biggest increase we ever saw was just over 200% increase in conversion rate when we slotted it into a sort of middle of funnel campaign. And I think, again, it's just because we're making it so clear to them what action they should take, and we're reminding them why the event is so relevant to them.
And does it help if it becomes an SEO landing page as well, and sort of to help? I mean, I'll just expand actually. What in the past, the idea of an SEO page was that it would have an enormous amount of text on it, are quite unwieldy, and that's not what I mean at all. I mean something which, a bit like you said before, Dom, that adds genuine value, is nice and concise, presents the specific things in which someone's looking for when they're coming onto that page, but also targeting the themes or the keywords, etc., that you might be looking for on that page. If you SEO that page as well, would that be helpful?
I think so, yeah. I think we can take quite a lot of inspiration from e-commerce, really. You know, if you search on Google for shoes from a particular brand, you're going to be presented with a direct link to that part of the website. I think that's kind of going to be growing in expectations from users, like I said, through AI and just having more personalized experiences. They're not going to want to work as hard to find the information that's relevant to them. You've got to put it in front of them. And making sure that it is ranking organically in Google as well is important, because as much as I focus on PPC and would love more money spent on PPC, if you can get clicks for free every time, you should. Like, that should be your number one priority. You should not be paying for clicks that you could be getting organically for free.
I would just say as well, so if there's another little bit to the slide, I wonder if you could
Absolutely.
move to that next bit. So we talk about the extra mile, and you know, the basics on the left-hand side, pretty much everyone should be doing the basics correctly. If you're not doing the basics correctly, you're not going to have strong foundations. But the extra mile comes from these types of things, what we're just talking about now. And I'll, you know, point to the milestone aligned point there. So one of the things that we think is important on landing pages, and essentially, where does someone land when they click is the question to answer. And is that where they expect to land? Is that going to give them the kind of CTA, the form, the thing you want them to do next, the thing you want them to read next? And often that is milestone aligned. And what we mean by that is, and what's different about event marketing compared to other types of product marketing, is there are particular milestones within an event marketing campaign around release of the agenda, keynote speakers announced, certain features you know, announced or revealed, things like even, you know, save the dates, download the floor plan, and see who's attending 2 weeks before, for example, or sometimes it's an early bird. And if, for example, you see an early bird, an ad that's pressing urgency for an early bird that's ending in 2 days' time, and you click on the early bird link, and then you end up on a home page where it's really hard to figure out where to register and what the early bird offer is, that's a really bad customer experience, and it's not going to work for you. So it's a really simple example of just thinking about what is in the ad. What are you actually asking them to do? What are you highlighting? What are you emphasizing that's going to be engaging, that's going to make them click? And then where do they end up? What do they, when they click, where do they end up? And is that aligned with where you are in the process? So you don't want them to, you know, click on a early bird link and end up on the save the date page. It's a silly example, but it's
you
know,
do see it though, don't you? You
there.
see it regularly.
Say in that, or an ad that profiles keynote speakers, and then they click on that and they end up on the, you know, on the homepage. Why? And then, you know, they should end up on the speakers page, or the specific page that highlights keynote speakers.
Do you find yourself, how far, obviously there'll be when agenda's launched and special offers and early bird and stuff, how far back do you find yourself going in terms of milestones?
Well, the milestone starts, you know, about 9 months out is typically when we'd start campaigns, particularly for when we're looking for leads for exhibition and sponsorship sales teams to follow up on. And then all the, you know, pretty much from 9 months out, targeting, you know, early on sponsors, exhibitors, audience, potential customers, and then moving towards the more attendee type focus.
So you're almost a 365 campaign, aren't you, for an annual event?
Yeah. You turn it on and off, so you know, you dial up and down, should I say. You wouldn't be running it at full pelt for 9 months. Obviously that's unaffordable.
All dependent on the cycle.
And the other thing we do see works well is if you dial it up at milestones. So you want to spend more at key milestones than you do when there's nothing to say, really. But you want to keep them running with the minimal spend, because that maintains the algorithm's targeting. If you turn them off entirely for too long, then you end up losing all that data.
we're starting to run out of time, unfortunately. This conversation has been absolutely amazing. I can't believe. So we've got a load of questions in, and I'll talk through these if that's okay very quickly, just to make sure that we cover off some of these. First one I'll take, it's an SEO question actually. How frequently do we have to update our meta titles and descriptions? I would suggest that, especially for your primary pages, they're always updated to reflect the dates that relate to your event. That's amazingly regularly not done, and they'll be out of date. So certainly for your primary pages, check those. When it comes to keywords and keyword research, typically they don't change that often. So if you're comfortable with the main topic for your event, keep the keywords. So I'd probably, every year you want to make sure that they're up to date in terms of dates. Maybe more often you want to change calls to action that reflect to what's your PPC campaigns doing. So sometimes it might be a subscribe, sometimes it might be a register now, update those. So I think it's any time anything is changing, and especially for primary pages. For Dominic, am I right in thinking that the results data you get from Google Ads campaign, you feed into PMax to find more of audiences? We kind of addressed that, haven't we? So yeah, the PMax campaigns very much do feed the audience, and sorry, is that the right way around? To feed the audience and very much relates to the tracking you've had set up.
Yeah, it does kind of work in both ways. I would say also there's kind of you do get a sort of passive benefit from just running campaigns within the same account, where Google's building a better understanding of who your audience is. So to some degree that does get shared automatically. But yes, it can definitely be useful as well to feed the data directly back to PMax to be like, these are the kinds of people that we want, let's get more of them.
Yeah. I've got a few more excellent questions, but I think we're going to run out of time. A fairly relatively basic question, or yeah, it's a big topic, but landing page best practice created on ASP or HubSpot. I would probably just at this stage keep it really simple in terms of making sure you receive when you land on a web page what you expect to find. So I think what you spoke about before, Helen, in terms of if it's about the launch of an agenda, and which you've seen in some form of ad somewhere, or is that when you actually go to the page, it gives you all the information that you'd expect to see on that. We have actually done a previous webinar on landing pages, and it's a whole topic in itself. But I think in many ways, if you think of it initially quite simplistically in terms of just landing on somewhere where you get the information you'd expect to find from where you've come from. I think probably, unfortunately, we've run out of time for questions. Let's, in our last 3 minutes, I believe you've got a special offer here, Helen and Dom.
Yes, we do. So we're happy to the people who made the time to join us today, and we're very grateful for you being here. Thank you. We'd love to give away some audits. So if you've got some PPC running, you're not sure if it's doing what you need it to do, ideally on an event, say in 3 to 6 months time, around that period. So maybe something, well, actually happening probably from April, May, June. One of the things we do is audit. Well, we'd always audit the campaigns anyway. If we were going to run PPC for clients, it's the first thing we do, to know that we using the correct data to feed into future campaigns, but we can also do them standalone, and we're offering 3 of those. So anyone, whoever emailed info@mpg.biz first, first come first serve, we'll get in touch, and we'll organize to do a free audit for you.
That's amazing, fantastic. We're also helping out with AI visibility snapshots. So if you want to know how well your website is appearing in AI, we are doing a special offer of an audit where you can see all the main topics that you're currently appearing for. This is just an example of an audit, how you compare with competitors. You can have a look at word cloud that relates to how your website currently looks, and all of the different types of content, how it's currently clustered. So if you want to have a nice overview of where you currently are and how you sit compared with competitors. Again, email us, special offer of £100, normally 150 for this, and we can get that done for you. We're going to be at Comfex next week. ASP are exhibiting at Comfex next week. I'm also going to be doing a talk on AI visibility. So if you want to find out more about that, that's on the Thursday, doing a talk there. I believe you guys are also at Comfex.
Yep, I'll be there. So
fantastic,
see you there.
fantastic. I just want to thank you guys so much for today. I've really enjoyed the conversation. Learned quite a few bits myself as well. So that's been really excellent. And yeah, thanks again for your time. It's really highly appreciated. We certainly have enjoyed working with you guys and look forward to lots more. And yeah, thanks to everyone for joining. And we'll keep abreast of our website, and we'll be emailing out all of the details of this afterwards. And like I say, it's all recorded, so you can catch up as well. So thanks again, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.